Hello, 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 Delicious. This is the Delicious Recap. It's our weekly revisiting of the 90s sitcom Family Matters. I'm Jon Francois and Andrew Ajay Vandertunt. Are you someone this week?
Uh, you gave out my government, John. Damn.
I'm sorry. I,
Today I am Sergio Mendez. That's who I am.
don't I always give your, well, first of all, Vandertunt is not your actual last name. So, I give your partial government via your first name. I do this every week.
I know. And every week I have to tell you I'm a different person. I
Okay.
am Sergio Mendez today. Um, so Sergio Mendez, he brought bossa nova music to the United States, and he has influenced my music through my life. And he recently passed away at 80 years old. So for me, he's going to be my person in honor of today. You've heard his music in James Bond movies, even the Black Eyed Peas, and he even wrote one of the songs, well, influenced the songs in Zelda, the game. So that's who I'm going to be this week because it seems like all my music legends are dying.
Yeah, I remember there was like a period in 2016, 2017, though, that like it seemed like every 2 days a music star was dying, whether it be Prince, David Bowie, Natalie Cole, the daughter of Nat King Cole. So maybe we're going through that again nowadays, where it's just people are dropping like flies, and it just makes the world seem a little depressing because, especially with music, these people hit you at your emotional core in particular moments of your life. So when they die, it feels like a part of you is dying with them.
It does. Like, it just really does. And the crazy thing, before he died, I had just been listening to his music on my road trip. So I'm just like, really? Another person that I really loved in music has passed away, but he had a great life. He was 83, I think, when he passed. And his family was happy. He was happy. So just in honor of him, that's who I'll be today.
There you go. I love that. Now, for you listening and viewing, reminder, we have a Patreon. You get your season 2 episode recaps and interviews early. Why not be a part of that exclusive club? You get access to behind the scenes conversations. I mean, we could talk about anything from Sergio Mendez to whether I look like Gabriel from The Walking Dead or not, the political atmosphere, especially with this election year. I mean, anything that's really non-family matters, we can touch on, and we will start to exclusively put that on Patreon on September 30th. You'll be before September 30th, you'll see preview episodes to give you a taste of that in the free podcast spaces, but starting September 30th, it'll be included in our Patreon package for just $5 a month. Early episode recaps, behind the scenes conversations. You'll love it. Patreon.com/delicious recap. Patreon.com/delicious recap. Get on it. Hey, before we get started into our recap, I know we had made mention about Family Matters writers, and they were a team, by the way, Pamela Eels and Sally Lapidus. They were interested in coming on the show. They actually wrote the Cousin Urkel episode that we recapped last week. They had to politely decline after, some needling to try to get them on, but I wanted to read the kind email that they wrote, and this was with Pamela's permission. So if you don't mind, Andrew. Dear John, I hope you've had a wonderful summer. That is so hilarious and great that you're doing the recap of the Cousin Urkel script, because we did mention that. That was one of our favorites. I'm so incredibly sorry to tell you that Sally and I are going to have to gratefully decline your lovely invitation. I feel terrible about keeping you waiting for so long, and I hope you will forgive us. I had really hoped that when we were both back in town, things would be better, but sadly, we are now dealing with more health issues in both of our families, and we just don't have the bandwidth to do this. I'm so sorry because I'm sure it would be delightful. We thought your interview with Rich Correll, who is one of our favorite people on earth, was so wonderful. Honestly, he pretty much said everything we could have said, and he did it beautifully. We had the same experience as he did. It was just a complete joy to work on that show and learn from Tom and Bob and Michael and Bill. I'm so sorry we are not able to come on the podcast to talk about that, but it was truly a wonderful first staffing job. As we have mentioned since to all 4 guys that they just mentioned in this email, we learned so much about how to write and how to run a show from all of them, and those are skills I still use to this day. We will be forever grateful to them. And we are grateful to you for reaching out to us. Again, please accept our most sincere apologies for not being able to hang out with you guys. I'm sure we would have had a blast. Wishing you the very best always, and thanks again for being such great fans. All the best, Pam and Sally. And Pam, she didn't have to do this, but she sent me an additional private apology on behalf of herself and mentioned that if we were ever in California, that we should hit her up and connect in person. So there you go. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you, Pam and Sally. I'll be in California next year, so I might end up hitting you up if you are listening to this. Wow. There's no need to apologize. Health things happen, and we are so happy that you took the time to even think about us. So thank you.
Shall we get into our episode?
Let's talk about an episode.
Yeah. Family Matters, Season 2, Episode 9, dedicated to the one I love. Original air date November 9th, 1990. It's written by Sarah Finney and Vita Spears, who I believe have some credits on like Moesha and the Parkers as well, because I remember seeing their names and those credits. Gary Mentier, the late, great Gary Mentier, directed this one, and guest starring Susan Bobian as Loretta and Karen Ward as Susie. Our Hulu synopsis, Harry. I was just going to say Harry. Yeah, old Harry Winslow, who we haven't met yet.
Harry Winslow, that's Harriet's twin that just hasn't appeared.
Oh, God. And he has a hairy fungus on his toe. I know, I went there. But Harriet gets jealous when the pretty new neighbor is attracted to Carl. Laura gets jealous after she plays matchmaker for Steve Urkel. When Steve is available again, Laura discovers she is no longer interested. Wow. Again, Hulu with the terrible summarizing. Because not only does it spoil the plot of that B story, but it also makes Laura seem like a big asshole. You know, like, oh, Laura got jealous and then she just got no more jealous and she dumped Steve. The end.
Yeah, this Hulu synopsis, I'm going to give it a plus because the Hulu synopsis did make it seem like Laura was just a school jock and just taking advantage of the pretty people.
Yeah. So I may start to use like the IMDb synopsis or something like that because sometimes Hulu just does not hit the note. Now, Andrew, you and I like briefly talked about how much I love this episode and how much you hated this episode. Without spoiling too much of what you'll probably already say in the recap, like I'm curious, like what did you not like about this episode?
It's going to spoil it if I say it because the answer is everything.
Okay.
I know, now that's just me making a joke. There is a lot to talk about in this episode. I do feel that, unfortunately, we had an episode where neither story developed to the point it needed to be developed. And it felt like we got cheated out of what could have potentially been good. And then also, I would have had some words for Harriet if I was in front of her in this episode.
If you were in Harriet's place?
If I was talking to Harriet, me and her would have some words.
Oh, okay. You know what? Harriet could have done more. I think I know what you're talking about. And I even wonder if you have an appetizer, main course, and a dessert, because it just sounds like you're going to have all junk food.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I wrote appetizer at some point in my notes, and we'll get to it.
Okay. All right. So we get to the cold.
Just in there.
So we get into the cold open in the living room. Very short and strange cold open, in my opinion. This is the one where it's established that Carl was going on a solo fishing trip in Alaska. What were your thoughts on this one?
So this is actually my appetizer. So, we said it last week, and I'm going to say it this week. This is probably my favorite cold open now. It kind of trumped the one from last week. Ooh, I hate that word. But it kind of just took over. Personally, I love fishing. Fishing is a very near and dear thing to me. And when they're talking about flying on a little puddle jumper plane, or that's the single prop engine plane they're talking about, have you ever been on one of those, John?
Like a plane where I jump off?
Well, it's a single prop plane, so there's only like one propeller in the front, and maybe like 4 people can sit inside of it.
No. I've only been into like regular commercial people plane.
I love flying in those planes. Living in Hawaii, going from island to island, you could fly in one of those planes from each island. So I was like, well, this is kind of fun. And who's going on this trip? And then Laura playing with the fishing lures in her ears. I used to do that with my dad's lures all the time.
Oh, no, that was Judy that did that.
Judy did it.
Yeah. I think that plane you're talking about, now that I think about it, when my family and we took a vacation to Haiti, their home country, back in 2001, summer of 2001, I remember flying one of those like smallish planes, either Haiti or Jamaica. I can't quite remember, but I think I know what you're talking about. The first thing that I noticed in this cold open is Eddie's yellow shirt. He had that, like the dashiki African Cool Runnings movie kind of design on it. And then followed by that immediately was, like you said, Judy like demonstrating to Richie these. But I thought it came off as dinosaur earrings to me for some reason, but you're saying it was something else.
So they're fishing lures, and on the ends of them are feathers, and you use those when you fish to attract fish to the bait.
I had no idea. No idea. But
Mm.
there you go. Some fishing knowledge via Judy and maybe to some extent Richie. I don't know what the hell Richie was doing there, but
Richie carried that scene literally.
of course.
Yeah, okay. Richie and Judy, I don't know why I put Laura in my nose, but Richie and Judy carried that scene. Judy was fun. And then when Richie picked up this entire sleeping bag that was bigger than him, I was like, this is the cutest moment ever.
You and I are going to be so different on this episode because I put Eddie, Judy, and Richie as my junk food. I thought, no, because I just figured that, like, okay, here's the whole point. Like, Carl and Harriette, like, they eventually come down the stairs. Carl is getting ready for what intends to be a solo fishing trip to Alaska. Harriette is worried that Carl is going to get hit by a glacier if he goes out there by himself. And then just as that worry comes into fruition, Mama Winslow comes out. She's in her fishing outfit. She's got her big fishing net. She's ready to go, kind of without permission. She's just letting herself be invited into this trip with Carl. And that's it. And I felt like we could have gotten that point across in that cold open without whatever extra thing in the beginning came from Eddie, Richie, and Judy. Sure, some fishing knowledge, yes, but those characters being as prime as they are to the cast, just using them for that little moment, and then we literally never see them for the rest of the episode, I was like, junk food, throw it away.
I can see that. I mean, the fishing trip was Mama Winslow's trip. It wasn't for Carl.
Oh,
So
never mind.
that was the point of it where it was like kind of funny, where I was like, okay, I can see Mama Winslow out here fishing, having herself like a good old wild time. And that's what made it for me at the very end when Mama Winslow walks in. And I'm like, okay, we have a good moment here.
I could have sworn that Carl and Harriette were talking about him going on a solo fishing trip in Alaska, though.
So Harriet says, I'm worried about those small planes because something had happened bad in them. But she never says Carl's the one getting in the plane. She never says who's getting in the plane. And then when Mama Winslow walks in with the fishing net, it's like, oh, this is your trip, Mama Winslow. This isn't for Carl and Harriet like we thought it was in the beginning of the sketch.
Okay. Well, I clearly was not paying attention all that well to that cold open. I was just kind of on autopilot, apparently. It was an inconsequential cold open to me. I mean, for me, the meat of the episode is everything else but that cold open. Do you have anything else to contribute, though? Because
I do. I want Eddie's shirt. That shirt was cute. I need that design on something. If anybody watches it and can find that specific design or make something from it, I will buy it from you.
I'm sure it's on eBay somewhere.
I've been looking and I can't find that specific pattern. Like that specific pattern I want so bad.
Oh, God. Well, good luck. I hope that search becomes eventually fruitful for you. We get into scene one. We are back in the living room, and this is where we establish Loretta. She's going to be a problem, but at first she just comes off as like, oh, this new person in the neighborhood that is having coffee or tea with Harriette on the couch, and they're going to be pals. What did you think about this first scene?
I thought it was going to be different than what we got. Because I thought like, oh, this is Harriet's good Judy. They've known each other for a while, because I'm trying to figure out, why is this woman in my house on my couch right now if you're just the new neighbor? Like, a hi and bye, maybe drop off some biscuits to their house, I understand. But I don't understand her coming to our house and sitting down. So I was like, this is going to be like a very established character that we're going to learn more about. And I was completely wrong.
Yeah, she, first of all, what drew me up to Loretta was her short bob-like hairstyle. What do you call that hairstyle that she was wearing? Because I've seen that a lot in the 90s.
It's kind of like a bob, but it's like a 90s bob, I guess. Because it's bob hair, and that's what the cut is. I just didn't like it. I was not a fan of it.
It looked like a thicker version of like what Halle Berry was wearing in the 90s. Like, I think I'm thinking of Boomerang, the movie she was in with Eddie Murphy. Like, she can see sort of she has sort of a similar hairstyle like that. And may I say, for a second, when I was like clicking on this episode to watch it from like the distant small screen view, when you click on the episode on Hulu, she looked like Judy Ann Elder for just a minute. I almost thought Judy Ann Elder, who is Harriette number 2 in season 9, I almost thought like, oh, she like guest starred like way back in season 2 of Family Matters as someone else.
I can see that in a small thumbnail with the physical traits of her face. They do resemble each other a bit.
Yeah, yeah. Now, uh, you had mentioned your appetizer being in the cold open. You said it was like what, Little Richie?
The entire cold open is my appetizer.
Yeah,
It's good. I like it.
it's okay. And then next episode, that'll be the best cold open. I know how it works. I know how it works. My appetizer is coming up right now. So it's established that Loretta has, I think she's bought some rundown shack in the neighborhood.
That's what Carl. That's what Carl calls it.
So like so I hear shack and I think, oh, like that's a kind of a rundown business that you plan to turn into like a summer restaurant, like a summer outside restaurant. But he's probably thinking like, oh, it's like a just a dirtied up apartment or something, right?
Yeah, he's calling the house like a hovel or like a place you wouldn't want to live. Like it's like, oh my God, who bought that place with the holes in the roof?
Okay, got it. And my appetizer here, I'm always a sucker for dad jokes. Remember when Harriette thought that like Carl could help with the hot water heater because it's not working, and Carl with his with his dad joke, he's like, "Hey, well, does it have a resume?" And I just look, it's not the greatest dad joke, but just the way Carl delivered it, laughing at himself, being like, "Oh, what can I say? I'm just blessed with wit." I loved it.
I love that you love it because I heard him say that joke in your voice. John, I could see this being a joke you make as a dad, and it would be hilarious.
I don't know if I'm that quick at like Carl, but yeah, you're somewhat accurate because I did laugh at it. I did enjoy it.
Mhm.
And you know what? You were surprised when that there was some romantic tension between Loretta and Carl. Like, when did that happen for you?
I wasn't surprised at the tension. I was surprised at the fact that Harriet did not drag her. That's where I was.
Oh, yeah. Harriet was like very light and stood aside. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
You're in my house. You're not going to talk to my husband this way. When Carl walks in, no, we're not doing that.
Harriet was surprisingly passive. We'll get to that when we get to that. Yeah, so as I kind of suspected in this present first scene, Loretta is getting flirtatious with Carl as they're walking out the door to look at the hot water heater. Loretta is, flirtatiously telling Carl like, "Oh, I didn't. Harriet never told me how handsome you were." And
That's
then,
when she would have got dragged. Right there.
that first part, and you know what? That can be a valid point because had Harriet foreseen how it would build later on, I mean, yeah, it would have been valid for her to drag Loretta out the door by her hair at that point. But this sets up a reoccurring dessert that I love so much. Carl, there's nothing like Carl when he gets flattered and nervous by a woman coming on to him. Remember his like he does that a few times throughout, and I just laugh each time.
It's funny. It's hilarious, Carl's reaction. And that does make the scene lighthearted.
Okay. It makes it tolerable for you, is what you're saying.
It makes it slightly tolerable, but as somebody who would know my partner very well, I know that sound when you make it. And I've heard her just say, "Oh, Harry didn't tell me how handsome you were." In my living room? No, no, no.
Mm. I was actually thinking all along while I was watching this episode how you were going to react to it because I feel I was like in my mind I was like Andrew could react either one of two ways. He could be kind of open-minded about it, or he could be very territorial about it. And sounds like you're very territorial.
This is my living room. You want to laugh at her joke? Hee hee hee. She's so funny. Go outside.
Okay, I totally get that. Anything else for this scene?
No, that's it for me in this scene.
All right, scene 2, we go to Rachel's place, which we haven't been in a while, it seems. It seemed like that was like a season 2 premiere thing, and then it just kind of like disappeared.
We had to give it a break. There was a lot of mystery around Rachel's place, and we didn't want to alert the arson marshals because there's still a crime there. That's still an active crime scene.
All right. I could see that. What are your thoughts about this one?
I love that we're back in Rachel's. It is fun to see everybody there. I love this very cute mousy girl we get in the very opening shot of the scene sitting at that table. Her little cat eye glasses she had on were so freaking cute.
They're so 60s. Susie, you're talking about Susie Crenshaw. Crenshaw's her last name?
I think Crenshaw is her last name.
Okay, okay, yeah. Susie Crenshaw. Yeah, I totally forgot. This is the scene where Steve and Susie kind of get set up together. Um, to open this scene, what the fuck was this weird transition? Like, remember the teenage kids like dancing in the middle of the dance floor to this hip hop instrumental, and then the song just abruptly stops, and then they just casually walk over to their tables as if that's like a normal thing to do. Like, there was no gradual transition between end of song to going back to the table. It was just bump it up, stop. All right, we're done.
Okay, Delicious. I need you to go back to season 1 of the podcast and listen to Tyron Perry and her interview that we did with her, because I cannot stop thinking about this every time I saw those kids dancing and then the music cuts out. But I'm so happy this time they were not just dancing to no music anymore and they had them sit down.
Yeah, I don't. It was just it seemed very rehearsed. It was just like, oh, dance here, bump it up, and now stop. All right, go back to your seat. Like, it just, there was no naturalness to it whatsoever. And then, as you mentioned, yeah, Susie, we get introduced to her. She comes off very antisocial, kind of rude in my mind when Laura was asking her like if she ordered something. And she had ponytails in this scene, right?
She did. She had ponytails, she had the glasses on, and she had like the floral print shirt, I think it was.
Okay. She had a droopy face. She just clearly was not having it. She just did not want to talk to anyone or anything. And then eventually, I think this is when Steve enters and he gets all excited with Laura about like entering her into the star registry. I've never heard of this. Have you heard of the star registry?
Yeah, that was a big thing when I was growing up, going through school. I maybe they did it at your school if you had like an astronomy club where if you discovered a star, you could name it.
I vaguely may have heard of it, but it was not on my radar. I probably didn't care about it.
I was a star nerd, okay? And I'm still a star nerd, and I love it. I thought that was the cutest thing ever.
So the way they do it here, where Steve is like, oh, from now on, Laura, star D12-255-5-53656 is now called Laura. Is that how they did it with you? Like it was all numbers and dashes, and you had to give it a simple name?
Mm-hmm. It's all dashes and numbers. You can name it whatever you want to name it, and it goes into the star registry. I mean, you're never going to go visit the star, but at least you know there's a heavenly body out there named after you.
And as far as like how Laura is reacting to Steve's star registry thing, I'm shocked because of all the creepy, annoying things that Steve has done that Laura is just like, suddenly she's just touched by this star thing. Like, oh my God, you're naming a star after me? Like, how is that going to make Steve any less obsessive and annoying?
So this is where my junk food starts.
Oh, God.
Because of Laura's reaction. Laura's like, oh, that's so sweet. You named the star after me. It's a great thing. But, I mean, if we have to go back, episodes before this, Laura is tired of these gestures from Steve. So kind of we just threw that all out the window because it's a star. I'm flattered that it's a star, Laura, but this was not the response I was expecting.
Yeah. And I think while Laura was still in her adoration, Steve was trying to take advantage, and he was just like, oh, do you like me enough to engage in a little lip wrestling? Come on, baby, pin me.
Yeah. I'm going to use that line one day on somebody at a club, and we're going to see what happens.
Oh, and if nothing happens, then you drag them out of the house by their hair, just like Harriette should have done with Loretta.
Well, I'm not going to do that.
I mean, you should, just for fun.
Possibly. You know what? I'll be like, damn it, you only named a comet after me, and I wanted a star.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when Laura is asking the, as of now, unidentified antisocial nerd girl if she can believe Steve is like this, oh, there you go. We find out that antisocial nerd girl speaks up and professes her love for the Irk man and wishes that he paid attention to her because I think Family Matters wants us to believe that only nerds can like other nerds.
John, that's the way. That is the way. It's cheerleader with football, nerd with nerd, science geek with band geek. That is the universe.
That the world is just that black and white, huh?
Mm-hmm. There is no other options. You don't deviate from it.
Oh, God. God forbid a nerd gets with I don't know, a Satanist.
God, you're talking about horses eating each other now.
I would love to see that just because I'm so tired of this normal world. Let's have some anarchy, god damn it.
All right, we're doing it. We're doing a singles meetup for Satanists and nerds, and it's gonna happen.
I love it. I'm there. Uh Funny Steve lines in this scene, I thought. One of them when like Laura eagerly wants to talk to him about something and Steve's like, "Oh, what's on your mind, my cute little comet?" And then he pats his lap to invite Laura to sit on it with his like euphoric love days facial expression. It was just great.
It was, and Steve is about the same size as the chair, so I'm like, Steve, nobody can sit on your lap. This is not gonna happen.
Yeah, he will not have a lap anymore once someone attempts to sit on it. So he's asking for trouble there. Another funny Steve line when Laura was asking him how long they've known each other. And remember when Steve took it literally, he was like 9 years, 3 months, 2 weeks, 4 days, 6 hours, 8 minutes, and 14 seconds. And then he subsequently just kept on counting the seconds. 15 seconds, 16 seconds, 17 seconds. And then Laura cuts him off. So, yeah.
Yeah, it gave me a very good laugh in this scene with Steve. Steve was fun in this episode, I have to admit. And I like the progression of this. Now, this is where I have the problem after Laura asked that. I'm sorry. Laura asked Steve how long they've known each other and then starts to berate him, but then rightfully so says, "This is why I've never been attracted to you." And I was hoping we were going to continue with that thing.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying there's a lack of consistency there.
There is, because remember, we just had Laura in the same scene, super excited about the star and thanking and praising Steve. And now, seconds later, she's like, "We're never going to be together. You have no shot with me. I have told you this over and over again." And it's like, Laura, you are sending very mixed signals right now.
Yeah. She don't know what she won't. I love how quickly and definitively Laura delivered this line, though, when she goes on about how Steve has always pestered her to fall in love with him. And Steve's like, "Oh, well, it's always been my cherished dream." And then without a beat, Laura's like, "Well, wake up."
Laura channeling her inner Harriette. I love it. Everybody laughed. The audience loved that moment.
It was great. Good job, Kelly Williams. I love the back and forth between Laura and Steve, where Steve creates scenarios that would force Laura to fall in love with him. And she's just like following up with like great responses that just negate what Steve is trying to put out there. So Steve was like, "Oh, well, what if we were on a desert island?" And Laura's like, "I'm a strong swimmer." And then I think the next one was like, "What if we were the last man and woman on Earth?" Well, mankind would end with us.
Laura ate in this scene. She did really good.
She did. And then Laura tells Steve that she would never, ever, ever, ever fall in love with him. Steve responds with, "Laura, that concept is hard to grasp." And Laura says, "Well, try this. There's a girl over there who actually likes you." Steve looks over to Susie, the nerd, antisocial nerd girl, suggestively leaned back, and he says, "Well, that concept is even harder to grasp." And I was confused for a split second because I was like, wait, so Urkel cannot understand Laura not falling in love with him and a girl even liking him in the first place.
The smartest kid in school doesn't get this. He doesn't get the concept of it. He's so blind to it, maybe. I want to believe that Steve is just so obsessed with Laura, he doesn't understand love in any other shit.
Okay. So to him, love is obsessing over a girl, and the girl just tells you no, 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 hates your guts, and you just feed off of that energy, and it makes you want to love her more.
Yes, he's Pepe Le Pew. That's exactly what he's doing.
God, he's Pepe Le Pew with maybe just a dash more of self-hatred. Put away the razors, Steve. Put away the razors.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, great physical comedy in this scene, though. Laura pulls Steve from the seat across the room to the seat at the table where Susie Crenshaw, antisocial nerd girl, is sitting because Steve is positioning his body as if he's like still sitting while he's trying to resist Laura pulling him over to the table, but failing. Like, I thought that was a wonderful moment. And then we eventually get Laura going over to Rachel behind the counter and explaining the shocking but also mean revelation that, like, oh, there's a girl who actually likes Steve. Like, Laura is seeing Steve and Susie get along, and Rachel is asking Laura if she's setting them up to get Steve to stop bothering her. And Laura says that is the plan, but she doesn't expect it to work. So that immediately sets up the assumption that like, oh, okay, Steve and Susie will really, really get closer. And Laura will just be like, oh, man, maybe annoying Steve not giving me attention hurts, and maybe I want that in my life.
Yep, our third emotion. We are on a roller coaster here with Laura, and it really threw me. I was like, wait, you're already jealous about these two just talking to each other? Which the dialogue between the two of them of did you know this and did you know that as they're like meeting lines was so cute. I was like, these are the cutest little nerds ever. And I was hoping we were going to get like early Myra in this situation. Like, this is Myra 1 before we get Myra later on.
It's Myra Light. It's Diet Myra before we get like the Supreme Sugar Myra.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. I wrote in my notes too. Like Steve and Susie, they're just the greatest. Susie was asking Steve if he knew that ancient Egyptians shaved their eyebrows to mourn the death of their cats, and Steve just was in his dad joke mood like Carl, and he was like, well, gee, I wonder what they shaved when their relatives died. And I think they both did the I think they both did the snort laugh.
They did it in unison. It was hilarious.
Yeah. Do you have anything else for the scene?
That is it for me, the scene here.
Cool. We go back into the living room for scene 3. And I believe we are heating up on this Carl and Loretta romantic tension thing. So thoughts about this one?
We are. So Carl comes in with Loretta, and he apparently looked at the water heater and tried to fix it and failed. And a considerable amount of time has passed since he left home.
Yeah. Harriette walks down the stairs, and she's giving me season 1 Harriette vibes because she is just casually strolling around the house with that. I think she had like a bright blue top, a black skirt, heels. Don't know what she was getting dressed for, but that's Harriette. We've kind of accepted that at this point. And she comes down and looks a little jealous as she sees Carl and Loretta come in and laugh about the story that Carl is telling about catching the senator with his mistress. Now, did you see Loretta's face at the door? Did it look dark to you, or am I going crazy? Maybe my computer screen was like darker because it looked like she had a tan from like scene 1 to scene 3.
I couldn't tell if it was the lighting or it was her makeup. I don't know if they did something more to her in makeup, like gave her more of a shadowy eye. But I noticed it on my TV too. I was like, noticeably something about her face was different. I'm going to go with possibly it was because she was standing in the doorway and the lighting wasn't as best there.
Possibly. Now, we know for sure that Loretta likes the fuck out of Carl, because who is going to tolerate somebody gradually destroying their new place piece by piece with Carl and his lack of talent for house projects? Carl, I think, claims he made a little explosion when attempting to fix the water heater, and Loretta was just like, no worries, that wall needed to be put out anyway.
Like, you really have a crush on somebody. If they destroy an entire wall in your house and you're not mad, you have a crush.
Now, have you had that kind of crush on somebody where like you've just had them fix things knowing it'll be broken, but you just want their company anyway? Like, have you ever liked somebody that much? Because that's intense.
Yes, I have, very unhealthily. If you want to know about it, watch my TikTok and I will explain to you how I moved halfway across the country for somebody who I did not love and did not love me. Oh. Yes.
And how can they follow you, just so they can see the TikTok?
Ajay Vandertunt on TikTok is how you find me.
All right. Well, Jesus Christ, Carl is casually telling Loretta that he'll see her later, and this is my main course. This woman, she has balls, because it is one thing to hit on a married man, but to hit on a married man in his home where his wife is, and you just kind of made friends with the wife a few scenes ago as if like y'all going to be best girlfriends and y'all going to be loyal to each other. Loretta has balls. Not the good kind, but she has balls. It's bizarre. And she's just suggestively being like, oh, I hope it's not too much later. And then you caught that soft, seductive kiss that Loretta was giving on Carl's cheek. I was like, This is not season one. Remember season one with the female police partner? Like that was okay. That was, she just happened to be attractive and her and Carl were friendly and it was fine. But God, I mean, right there. We don't even have to go on. It's like right there. No, Carl, she's got the hots for you. You need to step away from this woman.
Yes, Carl, stop being oblivious and you need to step away from her. Now, for me, we would have a serious problem here. And I wouldn't even be ready to fight Loretta at this point. She would have already got dragged. Carl and I would have had major issues. This is already something that we set in the expectations of our relationship. So I don't understand why this woman is kissing you. I don't understand why her mouth is near your skin in my house. We have issues.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. In my opinion, there's like a quick, friendly kiss on the cheek. Yes, it could be debatable if, men and women who are not together and, one of them is with somebody should be doing that. But Loretta was lingering. She was lingering. She planted those lips. She let Carl know, like, hey, you may be unavailable, but I'm available.
Exactly. She was planting the seed of deception right there. And there is that concept of, oh, we're friends. We meet each other and kiss. Y'all are not friends. You just met today. You're not friends. There's no acceptable room for that. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. If it was a man and man, I'd be like, so I know you don't greet people like that. So y'all just met. Can we talk? We have an issue. So it's that where I'm like, why didn't Harriet address this right in there and then?
Now, season one with the female police partner, like, I think I was on the side of like, okay, Harriet, breathe. I mean, it may not be what you think it is. Breathe. But this one, I think Harriet, she either saw it or she heard it. Either way, seeing or hearing it, something's going on. I wouldn't have blamed Harriet for just being outright jealous and being more vocal in her displeasure at this. She did not, because I don't know, maybe based on season one, she was just like, okay, maybe let Carl figure this out for his own. But no, literally, if you just like went apeshit and like, bitch, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I wouldn't have blamed her because Loretta's, at this point, she's being a straight up disrespectful homewrecker.
Yes, Loretta is being that girl. You are being that girl. Nobody wants to be that girl. And you're being that girl right now. And then Harriet, you heard it happen. Yeah. Like, you were ready to go punch a police officer in the face and nothing was even happening. This woman is standing in your home. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is not what Harriet would do.
Where your children are, where your children are, like where you've built up like a foundation, the big foundation of your relationship. It's awful. But, but then my lovely dessert comes back. Carl just doesn't know what to do with himself. Again, he's just like, after that, kiss and flirtatious line from Loretta. And Carl's just strolling in the house. He's just got that smile. He's got that little skip in his step as if he's madly in love and not married. And this is not a problem. And then Harriet just calls out defiantly, Carl. And Carl just is like scared, like, what? Like he's done something wrong. And Harriet was, as you mentioned, Harriet was asking Carl what time it was. Carl was guessing that it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And Harriet was like, it's 9:06 and he missed dinner. And Harriet was buttering him up with what he missed for dinner. Blank steak, mashed potatoes, butter beans. And Carl was like, I'm time to go eat some food. And remember, Harriet was like, I ate it all.
Yep, because I would have done the same thing. I would have said and done the same thing. I ate it all. Good for you, Carl. I hope she fed you while you were over there.
And poor Carl had to go from like a nice home-cooked meal made from his wife. He was thinking of that bachelor dinner option. All right, I guess I'll have a Pop-Tart. And Harriet was asking Carl if he realizes what is happening with Loretta. And Carl is so oblivious. He is so oblivious here to the point where it kind of made me laugh. He was like, I think so. We're having an argument and you ate my dinner.
Well, that would have made me even more angry.
Oh, like, no, I get it.
Oh, really?
I know. Carl is, I don't know. I mean, I think he has that married man complex where you're married and you've been used to being around and the same woman and showing love and affection to the same woman. And if you're in that traditional monogamous relationship, I mean, where is there time to find other women who are into you and are flirtatious with you? So if you find that, you're just kind of like, oh, like you just kind of don't know what to do with yourself. And maybe there's that sort of defensiveness that you think like, oh, it's harmless fun. It's not a big thing, but reality has to kick in. Like you're married.
It does. Reality has to kick in because straight guys will be like, well, just guys in general, because gay guys too. They're like, it's nothing. It means nothing. And then you end up with a Steve Urkel. That is what happens.
Oh, yeah. I think so. Yeah. I think yeah. Loretta could have been that if Carl let it get there. Um, and then Harriet tells Carl, hey, like Carl, I'm a woman. I can sense these things. Like Loretta's into you. Carl denies it. And I would argue even the most oblivious dumbass man could sense that. There was first season where it seemed like, okay, it's kind of middle of the road, vague, like, oh, you didn't quite know what was there with that female police partner. She seemed like she was playing it kind of innocent. And then there's Loretta, who is just bold coffee. Like, she is gonna wake you up. She's gonna let you know what she's about.
Yes, she's literally just like, I am here. I want you. She's like, take me now, Carl. And he is just ignoring the signs.
Yeah. And I'm all for Harriet, making Carl a starving man for not noticing Loretta's flirting. I mean, especially this moment. She tells Carl it's not her water heater that's looking to get fixed. And as she's about to walk out, Carl asks, like, oh, where are you going? And Harriet's like, I'm going to eat all the Pop-Tarts.
That is me. I related with Harriet being petty towards Carl in this moment more than I ever thought I would. That is a deserted mind when she says she's going to go eat the Pop-Tarts. I just laughed. And the look on Carl's face, he was shocked.
This episode could be the only one so far where pettiness is understandable, where I would defend pettiness.
Okay, look, you see the benefits of being petty.
Yeah. My last thing about this scene, I think it was just a repetition of what we said from the beginning. I mean, the way that Loretta stepped in, Harriet, I mean, we've seen Harriet, have those big moments of like, excuse me, like, wait, like, what are you doing? Like, and she was timid. And dare I say that might be uncharacteristic for her.
Seemed very uncharacteristic of her.
Yeah. Anything else for that scene?
No, that was it for me in this scene.
Yeah. How about scene 4 when we go back to Rachel's place? And I believe, we get back to this Steve and Susie B storyline, and Susie looks different this time.
Susie's had a little bit of glow up. She is looking very like, now this is where she starts to give me like early Myra. Like, I feel like they were testing a prototype for Myra with her when she has her little glow up. And Steve is now a bad boy. He's showing up late for work.
Yeah, I was not only late for work, he's not even dressed up. He's just like, look at this special date that I got with me. This girl with the grand makeover. She's got the new hairdo. She's no glasses this time. She's got that casual daytime date dress that I can't quite describe. But other than that, there's a bunch of patterns on it I can't quite identify. But I did notice that there were rhombuses.
There were. I picked up on those too.
There are always going to be rhombuses on everybody's dress in this show. I don't know why, but we are obsessed with rhombuses.
The rhombus dress. And, I feel like they have to sneak a rhombus in every episode somewhere. So I feel like there's rhombuses throughout this entire show. We just haven't noticed them all yet.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you thought of this, but when I saw Susie just radically made over, I wonder if we were sending the message that, like, oh, if someone's in sort of this antisocial, quiet, depressed funk, have them fall in love. That'll take them out.
Yeah, I mean, what's that song with movie with Freddie Prinze Jr.
She's All That.
She's All That. Yeah. And I think they give the girl like a makeover and she's all that. Like, she was a little nerdy. And then all of a sudden they take her ponytail down and take off her glasses and she's hot. That's kind of what happened with this girl.
There you go. It's the prevert. It's another prototype diet. She's All That.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They are signaling the future. We didn't realize it when we watched this as kids.
Yeah. And then as is the case with the white products like She's All That, they don't give credit to Black people like Family Matters. Tisk. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Anyway, so Steve cries out to Susie. She's like, oh, sweet knees, look, it's our table. And then Steve does that like unnecessary, but I found it to be very amusing, chivalrous act where he like physically carries Susie to the table like she's a bride and he's the groom. And Steve is struggling to carry her. And it was great to see. It was a moment of wonderful physical comedy.
Her feet touched the ground so many times.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I laughed as she's holding her. Her feet keep going down further to the floor, and it was the most funny thing ever.
Oh my God, that's great. And then Susie, I don't know. She was like, oh, Steve, thank you. You didn't have to go through the trouble. And Steve was like delightfully like, oh, that's okay. It was my turn. And I was just imagining like this funny image of Susie carrying Steve in the same way that Steve was carrying Susie. I thought that was funny. And now I guess Steve just casually sits on Susie's lap on instead of just sitting on his own chair. I'm like, oh, this is a cute kind of partnership.
It is. It's like Steve understands, like, hey, I may not be able to sit on your lap, but well, you can't sit on mine, but I can sit on yours. And we have affection here. This is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, Steve's blackness just shows out because, like, this guy, 15 minutes late to work, not even dressed up. He's just treating this as it's a non-work day where he can just stroll into his workplace on his off hours and take someone out on a date. But it's a family business, so it's not like Rachel's going to fire him.
Yeah, he kind of knew he was going to get away with it, but I did like his like very I'm bad to the bone baby attitude about it. Like I'm with my girl, and at least I'm here.
Yeah, I totally forgot. Like, so I was literally right before we got on here, I was editing our recap of the crash course where Steve goes from like being, taking the fall for Eddie. He's, guilty and he's telling Carl like, oh, maybe I'm just bad. And then he just switches into that seductive hip swaying bad to the bone. And I forgot there was a song that was called Bad to the Bone. So maybe that's what he was referencing.
Yes, I think there's an episode in a later season where he does a little dance to Bad to the Bone, walking in somewhere.
Ooh, I would love to see that. So Steve's unhealthy love obsession habits have clearly switched to Susie when Laura reminds him that they've only known each other a week and he's already calling her Suze and giving her this expensive looking necklace as a gift, which I don't know. I mean, is that the money from the job that he's slacking off on? Is that fuck you, leave us alone money from Herb and Diane? Like, where's that coming from?
That's from the Stay Away Fund. Steve's Stay Away Fund is getting very, very big.
Yeah. And this is where Rachel and Laura, they do their walk over behind the counter and have a little girl talk again. Rachel is sensing that Laura is a little sad and jealous that Steve and Susie are being a thing. This is bringing toxicity to full force for the Steve and Laura dynamic because not only is Steve non-consensually obsessed with Laura, but now we discover that beneath Laura's contempt when Steve gives her all that attention is that she doesn't know what to do with herself and Steve doesn't give her that attention. Whoa, layers.
What would we do without Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I love how you stress Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, I know it's spelled like Stokholm, but in my crazy mind, it almost sounds like stalking.
It really does. It really does. It's I don't know why we had this moment in the episode. I would love to pick the writer's brains for this one because it just seems so out of the blue. But you know what? I think I figured something out here.
Uh-oh,
We've got Harriet completely doing something out of the blue. Why not have Laura do something completely out of the blue? Mom and daughter episode where they're the opposite of what they would normally be.
There you go. And by the way, you said, well, why not have Laura do something out of the do? You said do as in doo-doo. Sorry, I'm a 5-year-old. Sorry.
I love it.
But no, the Hulu synopsis kind of like brought up the fact that this is like a kind of a tit for tat A and B storyline combination. It's like Harriet is getting jealous here and Laura is getting jealous there. So I think I see what you're saying. It's like Harriet is doing something out of the blue, which is being weirdly timid at Loretta really going after Carl. And Laura is doing something out of the blue by being like, oh, maybe I'm in love with Steve because he's with Susie.
We need to change the synopsis of the episode to Harriet. Harriet is being emotionally neglected by her husband, and Laura is dealing with the effects of being free from her stalker. Well, like, we should do that. That should be the synopsis of this episode because it's so weird to me.
I agree. Anything else for this scene?
That is it for me in this one.
So we go to the living room. So this is because like we go from the living room to the kitchen in like a very subtle, quick way. I'm gonna bunch the living room and kitchen moments into one scene This is collectively scene 5. And I believe we start off with Mama Winslow doing her stereotypical grandmother knitting, and Harriette is just furiously going through a magazine as she's trying to sort out her feelings for the Loretta and Carl situation. What did you think about this scene?
This scene here, this actually became my main course for this episode. I like the interaction here with Mama Winslow and Harriette and talking about Carl being back over at Loretta's place. And Harriette is clearly bothered. And I was hoping for more of this conversation, but I did like that we got it.
Yeah, yeah. And Harriette gets up out of her chair, and she's anxious that Carl's been at Loretta's place for like, what, an hour and a half, supposedly fixing a leaky faucet. And I was just like, wow, Jesus Christ, like how shitty of a house does Loretta want to have Carl close to her? And I love Mama Winslow's line after Harriette was like, oh, Carl's been at Loretta's for an hour and a half. Mama Winslow was like, well, knowing Carl, he's probably going to be there for the next 2 or 3 months working on that leaky faucet.
I mean, she knows he built that bathroom. So
did he build that bathroom? Because I think the professional contractors ended up finishing it.
Yeah, a couple of months later. So we know that one thing is turning into a massive thing with Carl.
And for you listening and viewing, of course, we're talking about season 1, episode 8, I think, with our guest star Susan Merson as one of the contractors. And you can find that interview and that recap. Look it up. It's available on our Delicious Recap podcast feed. And Mama Winslow is telling Harriette she's noticing that she's been worrying about Carl because she's just been eating all of Carl's favorite foods lately. And I love it. It's like the combination of like understandable pettiness and stress eating.
Yes, Harriette is doing the right thing here. She is taking things away from Carl so he can understand what he's doing, but also feeding like her little coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm. And I almost thought Mama Winslow was going to tell Harriette, like, oh, maybe you're kind of overthinking it. Maybe you're kind of wrong here. Maybe you should give Carl the benefit of the doubt. But in lovely Mama Winslow fashion, she's blunt. She's like, you know what, Loretta, she is a floozy trying to steal your husband. There is no doubt about that. She is a man burglar.
Mama Winslow gave the response I have been wanting somebody to give the entire episode, and it fits for me, because it's like, no, girl, we can see this one clearly. This isn't hidden or veiled in anything. If Sherlock Faucet's leaking, call a plumber. Why do you need Carl again?
Yeah. That being said, what do you think about Mama Winslow being like, on the other hand, there's nothing you can do but trust your husband? Do you think that was the right call, or do you think Mama Winslow should have just been like, no, Harriette, you go to that woman's house and you tear her a new one?
No, Mama Winslow gave the perfect answer of, you got to trust your husband. Because at the end of this, no matter how annoyed you are, the problem is not with Loretta. The problem is with your husband. Mm-hmm. And if you can trust him do the right thing. But if you can't trust him, it's time to keep it pushing. Like, this is a problem that Loretta's just a piece of it. The fact that Carl is not understanding what is happening is the problem.
Okay. All right. And then at this point, we switch to Laura in the kitchen. She's on the phone. She's leaving a voicemail for Steve while he's in the shower. And I'm hating this like mousy, high-pitched victim voice that Laura's putting on, because she's like, Steve, it's Laura. I just want to see if you're at home. I just wanted to talk to you about something. Like, she just had that like high-pitched voice that I wasn't really liking in that moment.
It's Stockholm. The Stockholm accent. That's what's coming out there.
Now, did you expect in the middle of Laura's voicemail, Steve was just he just came in, busting through that back porch door. He had nothing on but a towel, shower cap, flip-flops, soap suds all over his body. Like, he was ready to go. He was like, oh my God, Laura, I would have come sooner, but my mom told me to put on a towel.
I thought that was so funny. I was laughing when he burst in. Anytime Steve bursts in the door, I find it to be funny when wow, we get a lot of moments of him supposedly just running over to the Winslows after a shower, now that I think of it. And those are always hilarious.
Would it be as funny if he came in naked, but they like had the little blurry thing on his pee-pee?
No, that would have been really creepy. That would have been really creepy. I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah. Oh boy, I love it. Anyway, did you notice Laura's Kamala Harris moment?
No, what happened?
So Steve is flattering himself and suspecting that the green-eyed monster of jealousy has finally reared its ugly head. And he excitingly suggested to Laura that, like, Laura was willing to commit murder for him because apparently she's jealous of Susie. And Laura, while Steve is, doing all this weird bravado shit, he just cuts him off. Steve, I'm talking.
She did.
Yeah.
She did say that.
Mr. Vice President, I am speaking. Now, how Laura just immediately reminded me of Kamala in that scene where Steve could just be rambling with his nonsense, and Laura's just like, Steve, I'm speaking.
I love that. Oh.
Yeah.
Taking back the power in that moment made me champion her.
Laura for president. Stockholm, let's take Stockholm Syndrome to 2028.
Oh, gosh. I would still vote for you, Laura. I would.
I know. I would too. Flowers are a huge theme in everyone's clothing lately. What's going on? Laura has a dark flowery shirt, and she has like earrings and a barrette on her hair to sort of match the vibe of that shirt. I was getting a very Halloween-y vibe from this dark flowery shirt, even though it was like mid-November when this episode came out.
It did give me like pumpkin spice latte feel. Like I'm like, okay, this is like the beginning of fall, maybe a little bit of Halloween in there. What did you think of her bang?
I didn't notice it as much. Was it a really noticeable bang?
Yes, it was. She had the whole flip with it and everything.
Oh yeah, that sort of surfer wave bang. Yeah. How much acne do you think she had at the end of that scene?
I feel like her hair was so matted there just from the styling gel they used that she probably pulled off skin when that thing was combed out.
Yeah. Oh, God, that TikTok video you sent me was hilarious. Stupid song stuck in my head.
It's so good.
Damn you, is that from Lil Yachty?
So Lil Yachty just made a video of it. The girl who made the original video, oh, I forgot what her name was. I'm going to have to put it on social, but she did this video of people sending her pictures of themselves with bangs. And she sings the song in her car that's playing in the background about the bang and how it's ugly. Do not wear it.
Oh my God. I love that. But in this scene, I'm saying good to Laura for she's being honest with her feelings in this moment. She's admitting to Steve that she was used to his annoying, buzzing mosquito ways and then was thrown off when that wasn't happening anymore. She was missing his annoyingness when he devoted all of his attention to Susie. But now, after some thought, she realizes that she's actually happy for Steve and Susie, and they made a great fit. I did not expect that from Laura. I thought she was just going to go full toxic, jealous, like, what the fuck? Susie's not as good as me. But no, like, Laura gave the opening for Steve and Susie to be together, and then Steve just ruins it.
Yeah, like, I admire Laura for saying how she felt. It was not delivered to the correct person. This should have been the conversation that Laura and Rachel had. There was absolutely no reason for her to have this conversation with Steve. If you're happy that Steve is moving on, you know what you do, Laura. You move on. You didn't need to go have this conversation with him.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So you're saying by having the conversation with Steve, it just makes it seem like she's doing the opposite of moving on, that she's lingering over this, that she's actually really consumed by this. I get what you're saying. Yeah. That's actually a point I didn't even think about. Okay.
Yeah, that was what really bothered me. Like, why are you having this conversation with Steve? But this is for you, Laura. He didn't need this.
Yeah, good point. And then Steve used an analogy to describe Susie after he reveals to Laura that they broke up. He was like, oh, a week ago, Susie was a shy and fragile flower, afraid to open, but I applied a generous sprinkling of Urkel Miracle Grow, and lo and behold, she blossomed.
Steve. I love that he did that. I love that he had this master plan. I was hoping that Susie would have gone crazy and Steve would have been like, oh my God, Laura, this is what I'm putting you through. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did not even see that intention all along. So I believe Steve said that he was going to set Susie up with the captain of the chess club. Great name, by the way, Doyle Easterwood. What a name on this guy. when Steve and Susie were dating, I just felt like, oh, this is a nice, sweet chemistry. It felt like they were a match made in heaven, Myra Light, if you will. And I was thinking like either Steve is straight up weird beyond logic, or this is showing a severe lack of self-esteem on his part. Like, hey, dude, you found a girl finally that you could connect with on every level, but maybe subconsciously there was like that insecure, too good to be true complex, and you just let her go so you wouldn't get hurt. I don't know.
That could be it. I mean, I could definitely see that being a thing. I could also see that this is just a social experiment conducted by Urkel, and he planted Susie in that restaurant from the very beginning, and he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, because he's a manipulative, weird, psychopathic son of a bitch.
I would not put it past Steve Urkel to have multiple plans set up like this to get Laura back.
Yeah. I thought this was brilliant writing in this scene. I really expected it to just be as simple as Laura is putting out the whole jealousy thing on Steve, but it just kind of reverted in a way that I didn't think would happen, and it goes right back to Steve. Laura's not the villain here. Steve is, because it just shows that he has not improved one bit, and Laura was willing to be like, hey, good for you. You know, I was jealous for a bit, but good for you. So yeah, Laura has dragged Steve outside because now he is back to his annoying self. He's completely lost his mind. If you remember this moment, he's just like, oh, bang, zoom, zap, I'm on fire. And Laura literally closes the door on his face. And Steve even says from the outside, oh, I love the smell of fresh door on my face. And did you notice Laura, after she closed the door, she smiles and laughs as she walks away.
Yes, I thought that was hilarious. I don't know if she broke character, but when I saw her laughing, I laughed.
I didn't. I mean, this was another moment where I was like, is this Kelly breaking? Is this a thing with Laura? Because a second ago, Laura was just annoyed and was like, oh my God, Steve, just get the fuck out of the house. So to go from that to just suddenly laughing after she closed the door on him, I don't know.
Possibly. Or, I mean, John, have you ever laughed maniacally after something happened that you want to happen?
After something happened that I wanted to happen.
Yeah.
Yes, I had sex with my wife. No, I'm kidding. Can you imagine every time? I was inside you. I made it happen. No, I don't know. I don't think there's been the normal situation where I've laughed maniacally. How about you?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. Like when something works out the way I want it to work out, I kind of grin, smirk, and laugh. So I feel like Laura was like, mission accomplished. I got Steve back. Now I don't have to pay for lunch tomorrow.
Oh, all right. So maybe not only Steve, but Laura was kind of masterminding something behind the scenes.
That's kind of what it feels like looking at this episode.
Anything else for this scene?
I know this was it for me on this one.
Cool. We go to the living room in scene 6, and oh boy, Loretta. We thought she was already intense, but she turns up the intensity to like 1,000 billion at this point. She really lets Carl know, come inside this Loretta business. And yeah, we see him walking into the house. Carl is all dirtied up in a business casual outfit that he should not be wearing to fix a leaky faucet. I don't know if you noticed that. I was like, Carl, it's something called sweats. Put it on. Or like you literally look like you came from, oh, I don't know, like the bank or some ice cream social occasion and decided, all right, let's go from this to fixing a leaky faucet.
Definitely. And I said the same thing. I'm like, why is he wearing these clothes? Like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make sense. And where was this faucet at? Why is he covered in dirt?
I don't know. I mean, I know nothing about fix-it projects in the house. So do you not get dirty like that when you fix a faucet? Is it just wetness?
I've never gotten that dirty, like to my knees and ankles fixing a faucet. I mean, you've got to like climb inside the cabinet for that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, the way he was all like dustied and grayed up like that from head to toe, it almost seemed like he was going through a chimney rather than a water faucet. But then you see Loretta. My God, this woman is just dressed in a very, very fancy blue. She looks like she's going out to like a fancy restaurant and the theater after. She's, I mean, very dressed for somebody who's just watching a man dirty himself up with a leaky faucet.
But she knows what she's doing. That's when you call the plumber over and you try to be sexy and seductive. And what I did think was very cool that they did here, they put Loretta in the same colors that Harriet was in at the very start of the episode.
Yeah, I did notice that. I did notice that. You think that was intentional?
I do. I think it was like sending that message of, oh, I'm going to take Harriet's place. You like your wife in these colors? Look at me in these colors.
That could be a smart thing. Carl is maybe starting to catch on that Loretta is being a little bit much because the way he delivered that line, thank you for walking me home again. It's like that nervously polite manner where you kind of think like, oh, dumb married straight man, are you finally catching on?
This is where Carl would have been kicked out of the house for me. It took you this long to realize that there's a problem. You should have known from jump that there was an issue. So Carl's definitely in the wrong here for me in this moment. And I'm like, wow, Carl, you can't be that dense.
And did you see how Loretta just invited herself into the house? Carl did not even say like, hey, come in. Loretta was just like, I'm going to walk in. I own you now.
First thing in my notes, Carl returns home with Loretta in cute outfit and walks in the house without being welcomed.
This woman.
We have an issue.
This woman. And the gift that Loretta gives Carl, musical underwear. Have you ever heard of musical underwear? I've never seen that.
I've never heard of them, and I think it would be really cute. So I want to find a pair.
But we do know that, like, oh, red flags right there in front of you, Carl. This is a very personal gift. Like she's giving you something that you wear near your pee-pee. Time to shut the shit down.
Yeah. As soon as she bought you a gift, you should know, this is not okay. Why are you buying me a gift? You need to buy a gift for our house.
Yeah. Underwear. Not only a gift, but underwear. And then, wow, she keeps going. Loretta is like, hey, Carl, you could come over to my place and try them on. And I, along with the audience, I was in sync with the studio audience. I was like, oh, this one? It's very full. The heck?
She was being so forward, and me sitting there, and the audience is going, oh, and I'm like screaming at my television.
Yeah, yeah. And Carl gave her the perfect facial expression. He was just like, say what? Like he was catching on. Loretta's eyebrows even danced. Like you remember her eyebrows was dancing up and down. She was like, yeah, you know what I mean by try 'em on, Big Daddy.
She was ready. Loretta was like, I'm just going to put it all aside and I'm throwing it out here. This is what it is, Carl. Take them draws off.
And I think if I remember correctly, my dessert comes back again because I think there was a transition from Carl being like, he can't believe it. But then he goes back to that nervous flattery.
He does. He does his little laugh. And I'm just like,
but I wasn't laughing as much this time when I saw that he. Because Loretta has taken it too far because this is a married man's home where his wife is. And now she's talking about underwear and try it on. I want to see you, Big Daddy. Like, yeah.
She just doesn't even care. Like, what did you think of Carl saying, but I'm married?
Well, I mean, it's like 7 scenes too late, but he said it. And you know what? Look, I'm going to say good for Carl. Like, so he was honest with himself. He said, you know what, Loretta, you are a very attractive woman, but I'm a married man. I do not want to cheat on my wife. Of course, we get that predictable studio audience applause. Good for you, Carl. You're a smart man, even though you should have realized this from the beginning of the episode. Good for you. And my thought was, I know this would not be brought up in 1990. I was wondering if it would have been possible for Loretta to be up front with Carl from the get-go. Because remember when she said, like, in response to Carl being married, she's like, so I just want to have some fun. And, it's not talked about in 1990, but open marriages are a thing. So in my progressive 2024 fantasy, I was like, Loretta, just ask if Carl is in an open marriage. And that would just kind of like delete everything else that was about to happen. But it's not going to happen. It's 1990. We're in a very black and white. If you're married, it's always monogamous. You never cheat. You never go outside the marriage. So that's what I was thinking, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And in that scenario that you put forward, I would have respected Loretta so much more if she didn't go to Carl and said that. if she set Carl and Harriette down together.
Yeah.
Like, I would have totally respected that. Like, now their response could have been whatever it would have been, but I would have respected that. Like, oh, hey, I'm a single woman. Do you guys want to fool around? Something like that. That's a whole different scenario than you being sneaky and vindictive, and then Carl pretending to be oblivious and still trying to compliment this woman as she has insulted your family, your wife, and your home.
When you say pretending to be oblivious, so you're saying all along that Carl knew what was going on and he was just lying to himself?
Yeah, that's why he was laughing. His little nervous tick laugh of being infatuated, well, flattered by somebody flirting with him. That response is because you know flirting is coming your way. So you can't say, oh, I didn't know, because you don't do that when you're just laughing at something normal.
I mean, if he likes it, if he likes the flirting, if he likes that kind of attention, like there's nothing wrong with that. Look, I mean, I'll admit, yes, I'm a married man. Yes, I love my wife, but I see a woman I find attractive flirting with me. Yeah, I'm going to be like, oh, thank you. Like I'm probably going to be blushy about it. It's what you do with that blushiness that's what matters. Like you could think things, you could react in an innocent kind of blushy way, but if you take it much further, then know that there are consequences.
Yeah, maybe for me, when I have a relationship, I set expectations. There are expectations that I have, there are expectations that my partner has. So I expect that these expectations are understood. And if there is this thing where it's like, okay, this is a non-starter for me, and I need you to know that. And if you want to be with me, you're going to respect that. I can't force you into my boundaries, but you need to know that I will enforce my own boundaries if you cross that line. And I feel like Carl was oblivious because maybe there wasn't that discussion of, hey, this makes me feel uncomfortable, and I need to know that you know that it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. Those conversations up front in the beginning definitely do matter. And all right, so Carl gives his speech. I'm a married man. I don't cheat on my wife. He shows Loretta the door. Loretta walks out, turns around to Carl and says, too bad. Your loss. And the audience just gave a groan, which I was kind of I was kind of confused by, because I was like, well, maybe the more appropriate response should have been like, oh, hey, woo, relief. Carl is faithful again, or remains faithful. Let's celebrate. What do you think that groan was? Was it just like, oh, Loretta's going to come back soon and really haunt your dreams, Carl?
I don't know. I was like, maybe the audience is like, no, girl, he didn't miss anything. But then the reaction sound was like, are we going to get more? Is Harriette coming downstairs now? Like, what's happening?
We get another abrupt fade out. This one was strange coming out of this scene, because we see Carl locking the door from top to bottom, like Loretta's like some kind of burglar that's going to kill her or kill him. And we don't hear the locking as the scene is abruptly fading out. Did you notice that?
Yeah, there's no locking sound that happens.
It was weird.
They always have made sounds for locks in this show, so it did stand out a lot.
You have anything else for this scene?
No, that is it. Once we get into this last one.
Yeah, already the last one. Scene 7. Oh, the sweet Carl and Harriette moment I've been waiting for. What did you think about this one? No? I didn't like it?
Okay, in my notes here, I have question marks, like just indicating I was confused in the scene. I thought it was nice for them to come together and talk about kicking Loretta to the curb. But yeah, I think I was more distracted by the fact that Harriette was still pissed, but Carl kind of was like, well, everything's okay now. She's gone. And it's like, no, we have some issues to address here, Carl. And this just can't be wrapped up with a hug and, hey, she's gone.
And the issues that should have been brought up, what would that be? Is it essentially like, Carl, use your brain?
Yes, Carl, use your brain. And you kind of just disregarded Harriet's feelings here. And we didn't really get a full addressment of that.
Yeah. You're talking about like earlier when, Carl was just like, oh, Harriette, stop it. She's just a friend. Meh, 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 meh. And maybe Carl was just kind of borrowing from season 1, the female police partner thing. When that turned out to not be an affair situation, Harriette may have overreacted just a little bit to that. This time it was real. And Carl just kind of blew it off. And yeah, there could have been a deeper conversation about like, hey, like when your wife is concerned about a woman coming on to her husband, maybe listen and take her seriously.
Yeah, that's all I wanted. I just wanted an acknowledgement of her feelings, and that kind of never.
Yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. So this scene starts off with Carl sitting on the couch reading the paper. He notices Harriette walk in, and Carl has that sort of sad, sullen look on his face because he knows that a talk needs to be had. And when they do talk, Carl admits to Harriette that she was right about Loretta's intentions. I think the key line that stuck out to me: "Dust her body for fingerprints. You won't find mine."
It's just a cop.
Yeah, such a cop metaphor to say from a cop himself. And Carl was actually doing some Steve Urkel braggadocio from that previous kitchen scene when, with Laura, when Carl says he guesses he underestimated his good looks, his awesome animal magnetism. This is where I see what you're saying, because instead of actually taking this moment seriously and having the conversation that needs to be had, Carl tries to wrap it up and hey, I'm a good looking guy, babe. What can I say? He's distracting it with stupid man jokes.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just come on, Carl. There's times to joke. And this is one of those ones where Harriette really looks hurt and you are not taking it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, Harriette was vulnerable. She opened up. She said, hey, Loretta's an attractive woman. I was scared that you'd give in to temptation, Carl, and that I'd have to kill you. Good for you, Harriette. Be honest.
Harriette is very honest in the situation. She's like, damn, I almost had to raise these children on my own. And it's okay, Carl, we got it that you think you're cute and you're having fun, but just acknowledge I was right.
Mm-hmm. But, it's Family Matters. It's only 22 or 23 minutes, so automatically we have to have Harriette forgive Carl, and then they do their little deep smoocheroonie. The audience is just wooing their kiss. I personally thought it would have been great to end on that kiss. But no, we actually end on what I thought was an even funnier way to end this episode. First of all, Carl and Harriette, parental figures, they're comforting to me. Do not woo them as if they're going to get it on. Let's just put that out there. Let's not sexualize them. It's weird.
Okay, so do you hold Harriette and Carl in the regard of they've only had sex 3 times their entire marriage for their children?
Yeah. They're my TV parents. You guys only had sex when you've had children, and then after that, you hate each other's genitals, and you only live for the children. That's it. That is them. So Carl's musical underwear. We hear it as they're doing the smoocheroonie. It's playing that song "Only You." After they kissed, you hear that song. I found it to be a hilarious touch. I did not expect that. Harriette gives that facial expression what the hell why is there music playing from your pants?
I thought it was hilarious. It was super funny when the music played. And yes, it would annoy me if anybody is wondering if I found out those underwear came from Loretta. So Carl is not being completely honest about anything in this thing because he did not say where these underwear came from.
Yeah.
But hilarious.
Yeah, that's exactly what my thought was. It was oh, God, this is such a funny moment, but damn it, does it have to be from Loretta? And even when Carl had to slap his hips to stop the music, and Harriet's follow-up, what's music coming from your pants? It was gold. A pickup line I think should be used after sex. Whoa, what came from your pants? I think that was a song.
Okay, I'm saying that the next time I hook up with somebody.
Okay, please do, and let me know how it goes.
That'll be hilarious.
It would be. And Carl nervously responds with oh, let's go upstairs. I'll explain it to you. And then he slaps his hips to play the music again, and him and Harriette run upstairs. And what I love is how Harriette keeps her confused facial expression as she runs upstairs with Carl. I don't know what the hell is happening, but okay, I guess we're going to run upstairs with your singing penis.
Jon, that's a good night after club.
I guess. Oh, boy. So, Carl trying to sweeten the pot, trying to avoid that conversation. This is from a woman that was trying to hit on me and she came damn close to succeeding. But hey, I got the underwear and we're having fun. Let me use it on you, wifey. Let's forget about it.
Until Carl makes the mistake and says, oh yeah, I remember that woman, Loretta? She gave me these. And then it's all downhill.
Anything else?
That is it. That was the end of the episode.
There you go. Well, do you mind explaining our delicious stars?
So our delicious stars are how we rate each episode. They go from 0 to 3, 0 being the lowest, 3 being the highest. We're looking at the quality of our product, the mastery of our line delivery, the vibe and personality of the cast mixed with how the producers made the episode, the value of our time of watching this, and do we have any common grounds in this episode? Things we like, things we didn't like. We go from 0, which means we're not going to watch this episode again. We don't recommend you watch it. It's not worth the time. There's 1 star. It's a good episode for its respective season. 2, it's an excellent episode. It's worth the time watching. And then 3 stars, it's exceptional, encompassing everything we love about the show. And it's worth a special journey to experience this again.
Love it. And what is your rating? Because your rating is probably going to be so different from mine.
This is going to be a 1-star episode for me.
Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Go ahead. Explain.
It's 1 star because I did find myself laughing, and the cold open really saved this episode for me. I did go back and watch it a few times. Even when I was in a bad mood earlier, I kind of just put the episode on just to get another perspective of it again. And I noticed that the cold open just brought me in. It was fun. It was cute. It was campy. We did get some funny jokes in this episode, and I did love Steve and Laura's like little moment where Laura's dragging him in the chair. I did laugh out loud for that. So because of those instances, it gets a 1 star for me.
All right. All right. This is certainly my first, but I'm hoping it's not my only. This for me is a solid 3-star episode. I loved it. Loved it. Loved it. I would recommend anybody watch it again. The Carl and Loretta story was that strong for me. It just made it a really strong episode because Carl comedically shines. You put Carl in a situation where he's got that mixture of like flattery and nervousness at another woman coming onto him. He gives that married man, flustered dad energy. It's just great. Reginald can act the hell out of that scenario. And, you know, he comes out a hero at the end for remaining faithful to Harriette. So it's an all-win Carl episode for me. Loretta stunned me with her balls. Not good balls. That woman needs some therapy. That woman needs some reflection. But my God, to come into a married man's home where his wife currently is and just openly hit on him the way that she did. For Family Matters to put out a character like that, it was like, oh, okay. And I don't know. I'm going to ask you this. What would be your thoughts about Loretta coming back? Would you think that would be a problem? Would that like bring the show down? Would that make the show even more spicier? Like, what do you think?
I don't think it would be a problem. I think we would need to have a very well-written story for it. Like maybe Loretta starts dating a man and she wants to kind of like rekindle the friendship with the Winslows and they go on a double date. Yeah. Something like that I'd be in for. I'd even be in for like Loretta comes back and Harriet's like, you're not allowed in this house, but then the kids love her or something.
I would love to see that.
Like that could be good. Like she gets Eddie to fix the problems in the house and not like in a like weird pervy way, nothing like that. It's more like, oh, all of a sudden Eddie wants to go help the neighbor because maybe he has a crush on her. And then Harriet like, damn, how do I intervene here?
Or maybe it's revealed that Harriet number 2 is actually Loretta, and that surprises Carl and the entire family. And then boom, Family Matters series finale. What do they do with this information? Loretta has killed Harriet, pretending to be Harriet.
This is the answer to why we got a new Harriet in the last season. Loretta was plotting this whole time.
That would be great. Now, initially, I was going to give the junk food to like the whole Steve, Laura, Susie situation because I thought it was just going to end up with like, oh, Laura is jealous that her non-consensual stalker is not hitting on her anymore. But no, I mean, even that storyline, it managed to redeem itself by having Laura be okay with Steve and Susie being a thing. And then it just kind of reverting back to Steve not changing his ways and having some weird manipulative thing where, you know, Susie is being set up with the guy at the chess club and that this whole Susie thing all along was a way to get Laura jealous so that Laura can hopefully be in Steve's arms. Well, alas, Steve, you're crazy. It doesn't work that way. So an interesting twist on what I thought was going to be a certain kind of storyline. All around, I thought it was a solid episode. Laughs, touching Carl and Harriette moment that I always love to see. Steve and Laura, fine. If you are a casual Family Matters viewer, I would put this on the top so far.
Okay, I can agree with you there. Like, if this is an episode you love, I can see why you give it that rating. Now that this is our first 3-star rating, I need to find a way to do like a exploding star effect or something. Like a shooting star comes across the screen because you gave it 3 stars.
Star jizz, a jizzy star. Sorry, I went there. We went from the 3 stars, and then anything beyond the 3 stars is a jizzy star, a star that just explodes in many different directions. We love the episode that much.
Starges sounds like a 90s rock band.
Yeah. And I would listen to them. All the way.
I would too.
And their hit song, Come on My Comet.
See, you got a beat there, John. You got something amazing.
I know. Anyway, well, we are glad that you joined us for yet another dirty edition of the Delicious Recap. And find us wherever you get your podcasts, present, future delicious. We love you. Subscribe, follow, rate, review, share, as Andrew said. 5 people you know, family, friends, whoever that are a Family Matters fan that would love this, let them know about it. You can contact us personally at thedeliciousrecap@gmail.com. And we are on too many social media accounts, some that we shouldn't even be on, but whatever. It is what it is. That's America. We got to be part of the social media bandwagon. Instagram, Threads, Reddit, TikTok, Patreon, Facebook. Did I say Instagram?
You did. Yeah, you did.
Okay. The Delicious Recap. Just search us there. You'll find us. And especially our Patreon. Patreon.com/Delicious Recap. For just $5 a month, you get those season 2 episode recaps and interviews early.
Follow us and subscribe on YouTube if you can, please, because we truly appreciate it. And you can follow me on oh my God, I almost said the Truth Social. I do not have a Truth Social. You guys can follow me on TikTok.
Can you be on Truth Social? Can you just be that one outsider that's on Truth Social that just makes just makes it different, makes it very untruth socially?
I've heard that there's people on Truth Social who like do that. I don't know if I could just get into it. I don't know what the platform's like, so I'll avoid it. I don't know why I was thinking of Truth Social just now. But you can follow me on TikTok. Just look for Vandertunt. It's VANDERTUNT. That's it. And you can see all kinds of stories of my ratchet existence because it's becoming my journal and I love it.
Ratchet Social. You should start your own website.
Wait, I would be afraid of what would be on there, but send me your ratchetness.
Andrew, can you sign us off, please?
I am excited about the science project because it's a very delicious episode. So you guys go and put some vinegar and some baking soda for a delicious treat and let that deliciousness ring. Do not eat it.